Hello there, Waltonaires. I'm Jack, and this is a special DSNY livecast. We're going to be talking about the Quarter 2 2023 earnings call today. It concluded just about, I'd say, an hour ago. And so I've got all my notes down here, and I've got some graphics ready so I can explain it all in greater depth for all of you, for those who didn't necessarily catch it there, just making sure everything's working on my iPad. That's great. So, with that being said, let's get on with the first slide. But before I do that, I just want to explain that the quarterly earnings call, oftentimes, we don't expect big news to come out of these things. It's not like something which, I just want to make sure everything's okay in the chat. Everybody knows the mic is working okay. It's not lagging too much. I'm a bit concerned it is lagging. If it is, I might restart over again. Just want to double check. And if it is, actually, let me just plug in. Just give me 2 seconds. I'll just plug in the... plug this in instead of wire. There we go. Okay, that should be better now. Okay, right. So, with that being said, we're now no lag. Right, so the quarterly earnings call today, there was some news that came out of it. It was about mostly Disney Plus and Hulu. So we'll get to that in a minute. And then the other thing that was mentioned was about the ongoing DeSantis and Disney melodrama that's been going on there, the legal melodrama. That's Iger commented on that basically, and it will be newsworthy in itself. But let's get into the first graphic on the earnings call. So it was $21.8 billion for gross revenue for this quarter, fiscal quarter of 2023. This is up year over year. Year over year change is up, but quarter to quarter, I haven't put that on there, but quarter to quarter it was slightly down. Now, I think it's a pretty positive trend direction that it's up year over year, considering that this year we're supposedly, the talk has been about on Wall Street and financial markets about an upcoming recession in the works, and right now, Disney is up over their gross revenue year over year. So that's a positive point there for Disney. Then the other more important thing is the operating income. So this is, the way I like to explain it is, gross is obviously the total, but then operating income is the net, or net is what you get. And so that's what they actually take in as profit. So in terms of that, it was $3.28 billion, and that was negative. It was down 11% year over year. So under Chapek in the previous year, they had a greater operating income of actually putting money into the bank than they did for this quarter. So that's slightly down. So that was a negative point there. Okay, so then we're going to come to the next one, which is DPEP. Now, Disney Parks, Experience and Products had a gross revenue of $7.7 billion, which is up year over year. And operating income was $2.1 billion, which was up nearly 25%, nearly a quarter, 23% there, year over year change. Now, this kind of massive growth within the Disney Parks Experience and Products division isn't something that's going to be sustainable forever. It's not. They're not going to be able to continue to see this kind of level of 17 to 23% growth year over year. Eventually, it is going to level off. It is going to flatline to some degree and find its area. But at the moment, with Genie Plus and things like that, by the way, guys, thank you for commenting in the chat there that there's no lag, and because with live streams like this, buffering, lag, latency issues, all that sort of stuff, but we're live right now, so you do have issues from time to time. But going back to that graphic, their operating income is $2.1 billion. So if you actually think about the total number there of the entire Walt Disney Company's operating income for this quarter was $3.28 billion. and then you just look at what Parks and Resorts is bringing in, you can see that Parks and Resorts is really propping up the rest of the company right now. And that's a massive deal for us, the Disney Parks fans. Iger even said in the earnings call and the Q&A session part of it, he said, I mean, these earnings calls go on for like an hour, so I'm summarizing everything for you. He even said very specifically that the Disney Parks was a key growth driver for the company. And I think when you look at the operating income of the total company and also then Disney Parks and Resorts, you can see the reason why he's saying that. And personally, I would like to now see Disney repay some of that in terms of announce some big new investments for Disneyland, for Disneyland Paris, for Walt Disney World, in ways like that. But we'll see. Considering that they are outlining this as such a key part of the company, I think things are going to be coming down the pipe. Okay, next one, DMED. So you got Disney Media, Entertainment and Distribution. This was 14 billion gross revenue. That's only a slight year-over-year change there of 3%. But the bigger thing there you should look at is an operating income of 1.1 billion, which was 42% down year over year, which is a huge deal for it to be down so much year over year. And especially considering that you had Avatar come out in this quarter, you know, a lot of that was like pushed into this quarter, you know, because obviously it came out at Christmas, but a lot of people went to go see it in the new year. So that's a very interesting sign there with the operating income and how the drag on basically the financial bottom line is coming from media and entertainment. But yet the Disney Parks is the bright spot for it all. And Disney did actually say that they were slightly, what was the word they used? Slightly unfavourable. Yeah, slightly unfavourable. That's the word they used. It looks slightly unfavourable percentage-wise for the Disney Parks, that it was, you know, not as great as last year. Not last year, not as great as the previous quarter. But that's just to be expected. It can vary and fluctuate. But they were actually giving out some guidance saying that the previous year-over-year didn't have Genie Plus. So the percentage year-over-year in the last one, if you go back and look at those results, it was huge in comparison. And then this one, obviously, Genie Plus was out the year-over-year previously. And they were also stating that there's no 50th now for this quarter. Or coming up to no 50th for Walt Disney World. So that's going to affect the rest of the results for the year for Disney Parks. So they were trying to give a bit of guidance and give themselves a little bit of an excuse for the rest of the year. But to that, I say they've got Disney 100. They've got the Disney 100 celebration, which supposedly should be as big of a deal as Walt Disney World's 50th and should be driving as many people to the resort. So it could be a case that they're seeing slight softening in demand to come to Walt Disney World because all the talk, macro factors about the recession, and they're trying to now say, hey, it's not just the recession, it's also to do with, you know, the 50th not going on at Walt Disney World. I think that's just a little bit of a creative work there to try and give creative guidance, let's say, from the Chief Financial Officer, Christine McCarthy, to say that, you know, we don't have the 50th anniversary, but there is Disney 100. I want to read out some of these comments. We got a super chat here. It says, Disney is just so inconsistent. Inconsistent sometimes in terms of, you have to elaborate on that, but I think they're inconsistent in saying one thing that, you know, the parks are doing fantastic in terms of revenue, but they're not investing at that time, but yet when they're not doing fantastic in revenue, they're investing. So I think they just need to keep a level playing field of continual investment in the parks. Okay, we're going to get to the next thing. Actually, I'm going to bring up the Disney Plus numbers now. 157.8 million subscribers. 157.8 million subscribers. That's a 4 million loss in subscribers from the previous quarter. So that is significant in itself. I think the quarter there should be, yeah, it was the end of quarter 4 2022. It might be quarter 1 2023 actually, looking at that graphic there. But still, it's down 4 million. Now, I'm going to explain with this. you're going to hear a lot of people say, oh, well, this is a sign that Disney, is on a bad track with Disney Plus. Personally, I would love to see Disney stop making so many fluff pieces for Disney Plus and start investing in better content, because in many ways we see all of these. One of the examples recently is they've got something coming to Disney Plus called Craters, and it's like a Moonland base or something like that, a TV show set there, and it looks really high value in terms of production value, but like it doesn't grab you in terms of story, and it's hardly had any marketing behind it. And clearly Disney's spending lots of money on different things to just have as much content as possible to be put on Disney Plus, because they need to fill out the catalogue. But I'd rather them just invest in specific areas and really create the very best event TV that they could possibly make, because when you create event TV, it's water cooler talk for the next day. So I think that really matters, and with the Disney Plus subscriber numbers declining, it wasn't actually to do with domestic in terms of US and Canada. It's to do with international markets. In terms of the US and Canada, it was down 300,000 subscribers for a quarter, which is negligible. I mean, it's something to be wary of, but it can be explained away with people changing their spending habits in the new year and stuff like that. But then in terms of the global market, that's the more concerning thing. So they are, in terms of India, it's mainly to do with how they've changed up the cricket rights in India, and they've lost the cricket rights in India, and they've also changed the structure of Hotstar and Disney Plus, and so therefore people are subscribing to Disney Plus, but to somewhat not subscribing to Hotstar, so it kind of changes up the numbers, and they've lost 4 million internationally. So hopefully that explains that. Disney Plus and Hulu. So this was the big piece of news coming out of this earnings call. Iger has stated that in just the US domestically, by the end of 2023, Disney Plus and Hulu will be available within the same app. Now, about this, since the earnings call has ended, we have learnt that it's not going to be a new bundle. It's going to be if you are currently subscribed to Disney Plus already, and then you also subscribe to Hulu. And if you subscribe to both of them as part of a two-piece bundle, then you will be able to see the Hulu content within supposedly the Disney Plus app. I think it's the Disney Plus app they're going to be putting it into, and not vice versa. And it won't be, as I've seen some people ask, is it going to be a new app? Are they going to do an HBO Max, a rebrand where it's going to be just Max or Plus or something like that? They're not going to necessarily do that. They are going to be offering the Hulu content inside of Disney Plus's menu. And for those wondering, how are they going to square this in terms of the more mature content that Hulu offers for older audiences, in terms of Handmaid's Tale and things like that aren't suitable for children. It's simple. It all falls within one tile within the interface, and when you click on that tile, it pops up with a pin, and if you don't have the pin, you can't go into that section. So it's going to be safe for children to continue to use their parents' Disney Plus account, but then you can lock away certain parts of Disney Plus, so therefore it can't be accessible. So that is the Disney Plus and Hulu news. Now, what was I going to say here? You've got to have both services already to have one feature and the other. But I think this will just be a more convenient thing for a lot of people to use on their streaming devices, not have to jump from Hulu to Disney Plus to Hulu to Disney Plus, going between apps. It's all going to be within the same interface. And I don't know if I feel particularly good about them using the Disney Plus name like this, because if you start to roll other content into it. But at the end of the day, with Disney putting Hulu into Disney Plus, into the app, if you do subscribe to both, I think the writing's on the wall that we're going to hear in the next 12 months that Disney is going to be buying up Comcast's stake in Hulu. So, Hulu that will cost Disney quite a bit of money. NBC, Universal, Comcast know that. They'll be quite happy to relinquish their stake in Hulu and hand it over to Disney because Disney want to roll it into the rest of their service. It was always going to be, because Disney took on the Fox component of Hulu, so they've already owned 2/3 of Hulu. So I think Comcast is all in on Peacock. They don't want to be messing about with another streaming service, and Disney already owns 2/3 of Hulu already. On to the breakdown of Disney Parks Experience and Products. Let's do domestic first. Domestic Disney Parks news here. So 5.5 billion. It's a 14% increase year-over-year change in the domestic parks. So that's significant. That is significant for the domestic parks. But what's even bigger is when you look at the percentage increase of the international Disney parks. I know the number is 1.18 billion. It's a fifth of what the domestic parks do, but it's 100% year-over-year change, positive change. So that shows that there's real growth for Disney in Disneyland Paris, in Shanghai Disneyland, in Hong Kong Disneyland. And I also think the cruise line division is rolled into that as well, potentially. But that's a huge growth opportunity for Disney. If they've had a lot of troubles recently with their domestic parks in terms of the obvious DeSantis issue at the moment. We'll get into that in a minute. But with not just the Florida issue, but also Disneyland Forward proposal over in California, they're trying to get that pushed through as well. So there's a lot of money to be made within the US, but it's very difficult for them to do a lot of stuff. And if they can see more growth in international markets, then we might hear more projects get announced for Disneyland Paris and Shanghai Disneyland and Hong Kong Disneyland to get those into even bigger enterprises, so therefore they can really be making money from that as well. Okay, we're going to go to the next thing, which is products very quickly. 1 billion in products. It's a decline of 14% year-over-year change. And then I'm going to go to studio, which content sales and licensing is basically the theatrical side of a business in terms of movies being released. It's 2.19 billion. I'm guessing Avatar accounted for much of that this quarter because Avatar made around 2.3 billion. So for much of that quarter, and then you've also got the fact that towards the end of the quarter you also had Ant-Man and the Wasp come out as well. So you have the trailing off of Avatar, and then you also had Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania picking up the slack there for the theatrical business. So that's an 18% year-over-year change. That's good for Disney's theatrical business. Direct-to-consumer streaming, 5.5 billion, 12% increase year-over-year. Not really much to be said here, except for the fact that in terms of average revenue per user, Disney Plus is making more money per user despite losing subscribers. So I know a lot of people will be saying, oh, well, Disney's gone woke and they're going to go broke, and it's all that sort of narrative that some parts of the internet want to put out there. But at the end of the day, when you look at the financials, Disney's making more money, and they're not at risk of going broke because of it. And they've got strong businesses that it would take a lot for Disney to go broke from that standpoint. So yes, we've got linear networks next, which is pretty consistent usually. It's 7% decrease. The reason why I want to outline this one a bit more than usual is because linear networks is predominantly advertising based, and so there's the sign that if the advertising money is starting to dry up and slow down, then you're going to see that 7% decrease year over year. And that's exactly what we're seeing, because last year I think it was around 7 billion in this quarter, and now it's dropped to around, it's fluctuating. I remember for the longest time, I think 2020, 2021, it was always consistently 7 billion every quarter for linear networks, which is TV. And now we're starting to see it drop down, and that's a sign that advertising dollars are starting to dry up, and businesses are starting to get a bit concerned about the recession. And oftentimes with recessions like this, it's a domino effect. one big business decides to stop spending, and then another business will decide to stop spending, and another one, and then the dominoes will start to fall, and before you know it, you have a recession. Not because necessarily the recession was already there, but it's been created through, the domino effect. And I think that's what we're sort of starting to see right now, at least with the telltale signs from the advertising with the linear networks, is that a somewhat of a recession, even if it's a technical recession, is on the horizon. Okay, we're going to get to the next big piece of news, which is Bob Iger made a statement about the Florida situation. This is how he ended his 3-minute long answer to the question, and I'm not going to play the whole 3 minutes, just to fill time or anything like that. But yeah, he said, I'm going to finish by asking one question: does the state, meaning Florida, want us to invest more, employ more people, and pay taxes, or not? So there he's basically throwing down the gauntlet and saying, stop making life more difficult for us. We're the single largest single site employer in Florida with 75,000 cast members, employees. They pay them more than the standard minimum wage in Florida, which I believe is $15. They pay them more than that. They've just announced that they're going to work towards getting them up to around $20 or so. They're on, I believe, $17 right now. And they also pay more than their fair share of taxes. He made the point that, there are almost, he said almost 2,000 special districts in Florida. I think the number's closer to 1,700 special districts in Florida, special tax districts in Florida, of which the Villages is one, and Daytona is also another. So to say that Disney is getting some sort of special treatment just because they've got a special district, you've got 1,700 other districts, and yet Disney's district is being singled out by the governor of Florida, Ron DeSantis, and all the legislature and the state Congress and all of his allies in Congress. So there's actually another thing I want to bring up here, which Disney's fight an ongoing legal issue with DeSantis and Florida is starting to now trickle over into the national scene. Because what I read today is that Marjorie Taylor Greene and Lauren Boebert and a few others in Congress in Washington, D.C. have decided to try and revoke the no-fly zone over Walt Disney World and Disneyland Resort. And this, I feel, is... I'm just going to be honest about it. I think it's stupid. To try and revoke that. The reason why the no-fly zone was put into place to begin with was to do with terrorism. It was put into place post 9/11, and it just makes sense to try and protect if there's a place where millions of people attend and it's nearby an airport, which it is, and planes flying fairly low across Walt Disney World and stuff like that, then a no-fly zone over the specific parks makes the most sense. You may see Bioreconstruct and people like that do Bioreconstruct, by the way, on Twitter. I'm giving a shout out because he does fantastic work. He always covers all the latest construction. You see him in the rest of my videos, but he does great work. But how he does it is they go round the no-fly zone, and shoot photos and get photos from the outside of a no-fly zone. But to try and revoke the no-fly zone for no reason but retaliation and just to teach Disney a lesson, I think it's silly. And to be honest, I think there should be more no-fly zones over big populated areas, for that reason being that to keep people safe. Okay, there's someone's actually said there, how about a no-fly zone over Universal? I agree. I think there should be a no-fly zone over Universal as well. A lot of people go to Universal each year and over Epic Universe. Epic Universe is much closer to, MCO, the Orlando International Airport. And so I think, there probably should be. I think there should be an expansion of the no-fly zone over big populous areas rather than a removal of it. I want to read out, there's a super chat here from one. It says... I just wanted to say thank you for always going live whenever there's important breaking news. I enjoy the detailed breakdown you provide. Keep up the great work. Oh, thank you, everyone. Okay, and let me just read out a couple more comments here, because I know it's just me talking to camera, and I'd like this to be more of a discussion than anything else. But I have to get some of the news out of the way. Okay, I'm just going back, and then I just didn't want to miss this one as well. I really wish Disney Plus would have more shows like the hour-long Magic of Animal Kingdom and the Imagineering story. Seems like behind the scenes of the parks and rides would be easy to make. I completely agree. I would love to see more behind the scenes of parks. I know what you're talking about there with the Magic of Animal Kingdom show. That was very good, and the Imagineering story is one of my favourites on Disney Plus. It always is. I've always loved that kind of content, and I think it actually inspires a lot of young people to understand. It definitely inspired me to research and understand how the Disney parks operate, and understand how the construction side of things work and things like that. If it wasn't for Modern Marvels, if you remember the Modern Marvels show on Discovery, I watched that when I was like 13 years old, and I was always a Disney parks fan before then and loved watching Disney movies. But it was that changed it for me, and I was like, oh really, there's the utilidors underneath Magic Kingdom, and that's how they built Animal Kingdom, and that's how they did it. It's that kind of thing that inspires the next generation, the next 40 years worth of Imagineers, much like the Walt Disney's Disneyland story did with the first generation of Imagineers after the ones who built Disneyland. So I think it's very important to continue to inspire the people who are going to keep making great, innovative, imaginative things within the Disney parks. So I completely agree with you there. Let me read out some of these comments. Right. I figured something was coming regarding Hulu and Disney Plus, since there's an increase in content on both platforms. Hulu navigation has recently updated almost identical to Disney Plus, prepping users for a change. I think you're onto something there, Derek. Yeah. I don't have Hulu at the moment, but we do have, obviously have Disney Plus, we have HBO and Paramount and things like that, but we just don't have much of a need for Hulu at the moment. But if they brought down the price of Hulu slightly, then maybe it would be a more attractive a proposition for us to take. Another thing I wanted to point out about Disney Plus and Hulu, Iger said that they need to create a bigger difference between the ad-free and ad-supported model. So for those who are paying for the ad-supported model, I expect that when Iger says they need to create a bigger difference and they need to have more of an incentive for people to have go ad-free instead of ad-supported, I think one of the ways that they may end up doing that is, we still haven't got Avatar: The Way of Water on Disney Plus yet, and they may decide to bring theatrical presentations, the movies, to the ad-free model a month before the ad-supported, or something like that, to do two separate waves. I imagine they'll be doing something like that in the future. And also the EU over in Europe is going to have the ad tier introduced by the end of 2023 as well. And then in terms of Disney parks, I want to come back to this point which Iger was making about on DeSantis, and basically say that the land development agreement has been revoked. And this is going further and further and I know some won't like what I say about this whole issue, but I think it's just calling it like it is in many ways. Even DeSantis has admitted that it was sort of retaliation for Disney stepping into the political sphere. Whether you want to have an opinion or not on the political thing that started all of this, that's a completely different thing. What we're talking about now, because when we start talking about freedom of speech and companies, Disney's got a very strong case here. They are well within their rights to defend their cast members, and I believe that they will end up winning this lawsuit, because when it comes to freedom of speech, it's cut and dry. that DeSantis has said many times in his book and on stage and interviews that his aim was to get Disney to basically shut up. And you can't use governing powers to heavy a company into staying quiet. You can disagree with a company, you can say stuff like that, but you can't then use government powers to then punish a company or an individual for that matter. And so Disney's doing this lawsuit, and it's just going to get messier and messier in the future. I don't see it being resolved particularly quickly, but it will be resolved eventually. And I can see the way that this is going to end up being resolved. I do think, anyone talking about Disney moving out of Florida, it's silly, because they're just not going to do that. There's way too much infrastructure they've set it with Walt Disney World. There's 4 theme parks. People, will still go to Florida because they've got Universal, and Disney won't just up and move. It's not a carnival. They can't move towns. But they will, like Iger said, continue to look for other investment opportunities into other Disney parks. And that's where the Disneyland Forward proposal comes into all of this. Disney has been ramping up their, talk with the local community of Anaheim recently about Disneyland Forward proposal. And I think there's going to be a lot more push towards trying to get Disney to expand out in California as a result of this whole ongoing saga between DeSantis and Disney. And we should have a resolution to the Disneyland Forward proposal by roughly the end of this year. We should know what has roughly been approved and what hasn't, or what it'll go to the next stage, which is then approval, but like what people have had a say on. So Disney will be looking to expand out west. Internationally, Zootopia. I've got a graphic here for Zootopia. The Zootopia land over in Shanghai. This will be opening in 2023, so we've got that to look forward to from a Disney Parks perspective. And then also in 2023 over in Hong Kong, that's not concept art, that's an actual photo there of the Frozen themed land, Arendelle, over in Hong Kong Disneyland, that's going to be opening this year as well. So from a perspective of Disney parks internationally, we've got 2 big openings. We've got Zootopia and we've got Frozen. Sad that neither one of them are in the US. We've got Moana Journey of Water in Epcot, which, let's be honest, it's pathetic when you look at what Universal is going to open this year. Because Universal may be only opening 1 ride this year with Minions, but it's better than a walkthrough experience. It's actually there's very similar concepts from the standpoint of Moana is a walkthrough, literally a walkthrough with fountains, and the Minions ride is like a travelator, where you stand on a platform and move along. But as like a mix with that and like Buzz Lightyear's Astro Blaster, that kind of thing, with Space Ranger Spin. It's that kind of thing. Okay, so right, someone said here Disney is its own county basically. Right, so Disney owns 27,000 acres of land in Florida. That is almost twice the size of Manhattan. Manhattan is, I think, around 14,000 acres, and, Disney owns 27,000 acres. Now, a lot of that is swampland. A lot of that is unused conservation space. But, nevertheless, it's a lot to maintain the roads, the infrastructure, the sewage works, the electric, everything like that, all the backstage infrastructure that takes an army of people to run, basically. And it's a municipality. That's what Reedy Creek Improvement District was always about. It was about a municipality to run a city. Now, I know that Epcot never came to be in the way that Walt wanted it to be of a city of tomorrow. But, nevertheless, 4 theme parks, I can't even count how many hotels they've got, and millions of people visiting Walt Disney World each year and coming to Central Florida and going and staying on Disney property, it needs to be maintained properly. And Disney also know that from a logistical standpoint and a bureaucratic standpoint, it shouldn't be the taxpayers of nearby counties to have to pay for that. So they do it themselves. And to strip Disney of this just for the sake of trying to, get them to shut up, basically, Disney, it's a breach of the First Amendment. And I know some people will disagree with me and some people will unsubscribe me saying this. I mean, I did a video about the lawsuit around 2 weeks ago, and I've lost probably 300 subscribers because of it, because I covered the lawsuit. But when it comes to these kind of things, staying impartial and trying to thread the needle, there is an objective fact here. There is a fact, and that is the First Amendment. The Constitution withstands and should be upheld. And Disney didn't do anything wrong by saying that they stand up for their employees and didn't agree with the legislation that was passed. At the end of the day, DeSantis, if he wanted to wage war on Disney, he should have just encouraged everyone to boycott Disney. I know Disney gets boycotted once every year by a different movement of something. People try to boycott Disney over Disney Plus. They tried to boycott Disney over Galaxy's Edge. They tried to boycott Disney over many different things. Whenever there's a ticket increase, they boycott Disney. You can boycott a company, but using the governmental powers to then punish a company, that's where it went a bit too far. And I think where it went too far is that DeSantis has also said that was his plan to do so. Someone said here, give me a sec, I want to read some of these comments. Right. A company does not have legal authority to issue tax-free municipal bonds, so Disney committed securities fraud if they own the district. It's untrue. They did not commit securities fraud from that standpoint. If they committed securities fraud, the SEC would be involved by now. Disney's been operating in Walt Disney World for 50 years. It's all public knowledge. They publish it publicly. You can go along to the board meetings. They've been able to go along to the board meetings for the last 50 years, and you can look into the finances of the district. There's a really comprehensive plan. It's all pretty easy to research, and if that was the case, then someone by now who had an issue with Disney would have publicized it. So Disney owns the land, but then they also appoint the board as well, and the people take care of it from that standpoint. Because if Disney owns the land and the only people who, are the taxpayers in that district are Disney, then obviously they're going to do that. But they also pay their fair share of taxes to the state of Florida. And they also generate a lot of residual and extra tax from all of the tourism that they bring in as well. So, not necessarily true there. Okay, let me have a look down here. I want to read some of these. Jack is saying one attraction is better than another when neither attraction is actually open. Wow. I don't know what that's in reference to. I think you might be referencing Zootopia opening in 2023 or Frozen. But yeah, I don't really have an opinion on whether one's better than the other because I haven't been to either one of the lands yet, Zootopia or Frozen. And so I can't really comment on either one. I don't know what that was in reference to there. Let me have a look through some of these comments. They own 70% of what was Reedy Creek. Reedy Creek Improvement District was responsible for running the district, not Disney. That's true. Yeah, Reedy Creek Improvement District were responsible for running the district, but the Improvement District Board were appointed by they were Disney affiliated. So they worked very closely with Disney, which, much like this new board, this Central Florida Tourism Board, is appointed by DeSantis and works very closely with DeSantis. So it's just from one pendulum swing to the other. I want to talk about... Give me a second, there's one other thing. It's the statement. So... this is that's just zoomed out. This from Blog Mickey. Blog Mickey's got the transcription here, but it's a very long statement that Iger has made here about the situation that Disney's finding themselves in with this lawsuit, and I think there's a very different tact that he's taking from what Bob Chapek took. Bob Chapek, I think this whole mess has been created by Bob Chapek. He didn't say something to begin with last year, and then when he did say something, he came out, and I think he was trying to overcompensate for the fact that he didn't say something for so long, and then he tried to overcompensate by using the word repeal. And the word repeal in his initial statement on the matter was what triggered a lot of the allies of the bill, basically. I can't remember what was the name, parental rights bill. That thing, it angered a lot of the people who basically created that bill. And with using the word repeal is what the main issue was. But I think it's because Chapek should have been straight out the gate, should have come out strong against it and given his statement. But then they tried to go too far the other way to try and make up for the fact that they'd been late to the party. In terms of, a lot of their cast members had already started to say, "Where are you? You're not having our backs." So, Iger's got a real difficult situation to deal with here. That was created under Chapek, this PR nightmare, and I think he's cleaning it up fairly well in terms of saying, no, you can't attack a company from a freedom of speech standpoint, and we'll challenge it legally. And I think he's actually handling himself very well. There's one thing that I've always respected about Iger is that he is more statesman-like. He is a statesman CEO, and he deals with things like that. He speaks as a statesman, because obviously Disney is a company with 220,000 employees. I know that they've laid off 7,000 employees, but 7,000 out of 220,000, it equates to around a 3% decrease in their overall workforce. Which, if you compare that to the likes of the layoffs from Amazon and Microsoft and Google and everyone else, that is very small from Disney. So Disney's in a good position financially, health-wise, but they do need to get their content game sorted in Disney Plus, and then they also need to invest in the parks because they're going to be left behind by Universal. Okay, I want to come back to Timothy here because you originally said something about I picked one attraction over. I wish there was a new theme park commentator who acknowledged the unprecedented increase in construction costs impacts the development of new attractions. That's actually a topic which I've considered in the past, about the fact that the budgets are just growing out of control. Guardians of the Galaxy Cosmic Rewind costs approximately $450 million to construct. And I love the attraction. I love Guardians. I think it's a fantastic roller coaster. Is it worth nearly $500 million? I don't think so. But it's a great roller coaster, and I see what you mean there in terms of the runaway costs are hurting the overall construction of the rest of the attractions that we could see being built for the same amount of money. It might be more quantity than because it's not like they won't be quality, but we need smaller additions as well. Whereas like something like Journey of Water probably doesn't cost that much, but at the end of the day, it's taken the best part of 3 years to construct, and it's just a walkthrough. So it's about measuring and balancing construction cost, construction pace, and construction quantity all in the same table. And I think Bruce Vaughan, who's the new Imagineering vice president, he's got a lot of experience at doing that previously until 2016, and he's now back at Imagineering. I think we're going to see a different type of Imagineering going forward in the next 5 years, and I think we'll start to see projects ramp up, and we'll start to see things get completed a little bit faster. I want to read this one out. Jack, do you know the amount in dollars it takes Reedy Creek to keep up the property? Just thinking how someone would want to take that over. I don't have that off the top of my head. I wasn't prepared for that question. I'm sorry there, Mark. I wasn't prepared for that question before we started this. I didn't think this would be a Reedy Creek live stream necessarily. I haven't got that number in front of me, and I don't want to just pluck one out of thin air and get it wrong. But it's all publicly accessible, all of these different, statistics. I mean, I've got all of the different previous comprehensive plans and the detailed reports that Reedy Creek have done, and all the numbers are disclosed, and it's not hard to find. Rob Plays actually did a fantastic job. If you remember Rob Plays and his channel where he used to, he hasn't posted a video for I think around a year, but his videos are still just as good as they were back then. You know, they're still as relevant today as they were when they were first posted. And if you want to find out some of these details, I highly recommend going over to Midway to Main Street and look back at his catalogue of videos, because he talked about Reedy Creek Improvement District in great depth. And if you want a history of Reedy Creek, he did a two-part video where he spoke about why it was needed and then also how it was created, and that was great. And then he also talks about the logistics side of how Reedy Creek operates. So if you want to learn a lot more about it in a very good explainer video, Rob does a fantastic job of it. So Midway to Main Street, definitely go check that out. Search it up on YouTube. I see one wrote here, I miss Rob Plays. I miss him too. I miss his videos too. He's still lives locally, but he's very happy, and I'd like to see more videos from Midway to Main Street. I always loved his videos. Okay, I want to bring up some more comments here, and then guys, we've been live for 45 minutes right now. I'm going to probably end it around the half an hour mark, the 1 hour mark. So 7:30, I'm gonna end the live stream at that point. There. So okay. Let me have a look here. Looking through some of the comments. Thank you everybody, by the way, for joining me today on this live stream. I know these quarterly earnings calls not the most fascinating. I know the previous one, quarter one 2023, was way more interesting because we had the announcement that Avatar an Avatar experience, should I say, was announced to be coming to Disneyland. Now that was on February 8th. We got that news, and we haven't heard any more about it since. Now we're 3 months later, and we're not none the wiser about that experience. I was hoping, fingers crossed, we'd know more about it by now, but I don't think that's necessarily going to be a Destination D announcement. I think that could be more a Parks blog announcement and then an elaboration at Destination D, because Destination D23 is taking place in Walt Disney World at the Contemporary Resort, and we're in the ballrooms there, and it's taking place almost 1 year to the same weekend that D23 Expo took place last year. And I personally think that they need to come out swinging in a big way at Destination D, because D23 last year left a lot to be desired in terms of announcements. And I feel like if they don't do something and start announcing big projects soon, Disney's, despite, as Iger said, they're a key growth driver for the company, I think they're going to give such a lead to Universal. Universal have the Texas Park in Fresco, Texas, and then they've also got Epic Universe opening in 2025. Disney need to at least show that they've got things in the works to get people excited about in the domestic parks. And Destination D, all eyes on Destination D in September this year. I think it's around September 10th. So yeah, that'll be interesting. I just want to also put another one up. Daniel Hope wrote here, used to love Rob's videos, hope he comes back. I hope he comes back with more videos as well. The thing is about his style of videos, which I do appreciate, is the fact that they're just solid videos that are evergreen, and he talks about history topics. That the beauty about history, especially a history topic which he talks about, Defunctland talks about, Market Yesterworld talks about Park Ride History, people like that, Disney Dan talks about as well. All these history type videos, they stand the test of time in terms of, you can watch one which is 3 years old and they're still relevant. And that's what Rob's videos do as well. Even though they were more news adjacent, they still stand the test of time because they're just facts about, that point in time, what it costs to run Walt Disney World and things like that. Someone said, Jack, you're the best in biz. I don't think so. I'm not a very good live streamer. I'm sorry that the live stream is a little bit all over the place, but I'm getting better at them. Hopefully they're insightful and it breaks down the earnings call in a quick way that that you can understand without just listening to the audio, because you can go to the Walt Disney Company website and find the live stream, but it's literally just an audio recording, and it's not the best quality audio as well. So it's like listening to a 1 hour, not very interesting podcast, because they talk about all sorts of investing terms and things like that, and without being able to know what certain parts of divisions are, it can seem a little bit like gobbledygook sometimes, a little bit of a secret language. Jack, what do you think of the idea of Kingdom Hearts being brought into the parks? I don't think it will be brought into the parks. I don't think it's a terrible idea to try and work parts of this into the parks, especially with future expansions and things like that. But I don't think it's it hasn't permeated the pop culture the same way that movies do, because obviously it's a video game, and it was also a book series. And no, that's Keepers of the Kingdom. Sorry, it's similar names. Kingdom Hearts, with it being a video game series, it's not as you got to think about the average Joe going to the parks. Will they know what Kingdom Hearts is? Maybe their kids will, but you've got to have something that appeals to all ages. And I think, Mario and Super Nintendo World. By the way, Iger gave a shout out to the Mario movie, Super Mario Brothers, at the beginning of the earnings call. That was nice of him. And he said, congratulations to Universal for having a blockbuster success with that. Which is good to see, CEOs of big companies, rivals, congratulate each other for having theatrical success, because rising tide lifts all ships. But, don't forget, it wasn't like Mario had a theme park like 30 years ago. It's taken 30 years of ingrained, Mario video games to get to this point where a whole generation has grown up with, Super Mario Brothers and stuff like that, and all the Nintendo games, Nintendo Switch, Nintendo Wii, Game Boy, all of that. And they've got to this point where now people want to go on rides like that. So I don't think Kingdom Hearts is in the same ilk right now, although it is another video game series that Disney has. I think they could work, if they were to do a movie on Kingdom Hearts and work it into a Disney Plus anthology series or something like that. I know Jon Favreau years ago was talking about doing something like a Magic Kingdom, Kingdom Hearts kind of crossover TV series that was like set within the Magic Kingdom. It was like it might have been a movie actually that was set within Magic Kingdom, and it was a little bit like what Kingdom Hearts shows. Obviously integrating a lot of the IP and stuff like that, and it was a little bit like Night at the Museum. So maybe there's a way to do it, but I think there would need to be a theatrical or Disney Plus series before we saw it integrated into the parks to get more of the common Disney viewer, the person who doesn't, enjoy every single aspect of media that Disney puts out, to understand what it is in the Disney parks. Where's the transcript of Iger's statement? Is it available on the Disney Company website? So with the earnings call, usually they put out a transcript. It takes a little while afterwards, but around an hour, 2 hours after the earnings call, it will be up on the Disney website. You go to waltdisneycompany.com and then go to investor relations, presentation, investor presentations, and then from there click on Q2 2023. And then it should say transcript, and then you'll have the transcript. But this was the statement that Iger said about, it was a 3-minute long answer. I am not playing it now, but it was a 3-minute long answer. And you can see here, but in fact, we are the largest taxpayer in Central Florida, paying over $1.1 billion in state and local taxes last year alone. They paid $1.1 billion in state and local taxes. It's not like they're trying to dodge tax here. It's all publicly accessible, these finances, and Disney pays more than their fair share in terms of taxes. And not just that, they also produce extra tax from generating tourism as well. So, but one thing that was interesting is I reiterated again that $17 billion number over the next 10 years. So clearly, if this whole thing resolves itself, Disney do have plans to invest in a big way in Florida, in Walt Disney World. And I would love to see that. But at the moment, until this lawsuit is dealt with, I think that carrot is just going to continue to be dangled. But realistically, with the parks propping up the rest of the company, they need to invest in the parks. They need to show their commitment to the parks as well. Okay, we're almost at the 1 hour mark here. Last couple of questions, if you got any. Bit of an announcement about the channel. I've got a very interesting video coming up soon. It's one which I've really enjoyed working on, and it's not an armchair Imagineering video. It's not like a Waltoneering video. Those ones I'm going to start doing over on Patreon instead. So if you enjoyed the Waltoneering videos, the armchair Imagineering videos, come join the Patreon, the official Waltoneer Club on Patreon. It's literally $1 a month, and you get access to some Patreon videos. But it's not that kind of video. It's a very interesting deep dive into a topic which I think will be relevant for many years to come. So I'm not going to give away the topic right now because I haven't finished working on the video, but I think people will enjoy the interesting take on this certain topic. So look out for that in the next couple of weeks. Well, not the next couple of weeks, in the next week, I'd say. And then also in the next couple of weeks, I've got a couple of videos working on op-ed pieces, more of the DSNY unfiltered videos, to try and shine a light on a certain issue. And that one is about Fox. That one's about the Fox acquisition, and how, personally, I think the acquisition of 21st Century Fox was not the best move in hindsight. And I know hindsight's 2020, and irony of it being 2020, and that, but I don't think Fox was a fantastic acquisition. I think it was one acquisition too far. Okay, right. Just want to, on a completely unrelated note, how much longer will Autopia stick around before they hopefully replace it? If you want to subscribe to the Patreon, I actually did a video over on Patreon that was all about where I think the Avatar experience will go in Disneyland. And needless to say, I think the most obvious contender is Disneyland's Tomorrowland, and I think Autopia and the Nemo subs makes the most sense in terms of a location. There's a lot of land there that they could build a sizable mini land for Pandora with a singular attraction. They can dig down deep into the ground because they don't have the same problem of the water table that they have in the sea level table, the water table that they have in Florida. So they can dig down deeper into the ground, and they could probably hide much of a large show building underground like they do with Pirates of the Caribbean, but in Tomorrowland in Disneyland. So I think that's the strongest contender. But there's another idea in the video as well, and I also talk about what kind of thing I would expect it to be, whether it's an experience or if it's going to be an interactive thing, or if it's actually going to be a ride or not. Okay. Yeah, no, one just said there they paid $30 billion too much for Fox. Yeah, I agree. Way too much. Originally the deal was for $50 billion, then it went up to $71 billion, and then they bought Fox for $71 billion, but then they sold the Sky broadband and telecommunications component in the UK to Comcast, and they made back $30 billion there. So it brought down the overall price to $40 billion. But I do think they still overpaid by probably $30 billion, like you say, because the thing that was the most important part about the Fox acquisition was Hotstar and the entry into the global market. That was the most important part, and also the Hulu segment. But the IP wasn't really worth that much, I don't think. They haven't, really capitalized on that too much. Avatar's interesting, but then again, it's not going to pay for the rest of the Fox acquisition. Okay, so that's everything for today. Thank you for joining me on this live stream. I've enjoyed chatting and talking about the latest in terms of the quarterly earnings call. And with that being said, stay tuned to the channel for next week for more videos. And I've been Jack, you've been you, and I'll see you real soon.